don't mind tonight. Play for over.
Depends. Will your friend, the footballer, be there?
Oh, friend! Football friend!
Oh, what a superb goal! Stefan Moore, that is extraordinary from Ben Garuccio.
You're listening to episode 10 of Football Friends with Ben Garuccio and Stefan Moore. It's a happy week again on the podcast as Ben and Western United break their points drought. Hear the boys wrap up all from round 8 and look ahead to round 9. Along with the aforementioned, the boys discuss just what it's like to be part of a dressing room through the lows and how a team has to react to pull themselves out of it. And AAFC chairman Nick Galatas joins us to chat all things NSD as we head towards the final year before kickoff. All that and more coming up on Football Friends.
And welcome back to the Football Friends podcast with Ben and Stef. I'm Stef, and here's Ben.
How are you, Steph? Good to see you again for another episode.
Yeah, it's good to be back here on a Tuesday. I've spent a lot of time with little Orlando and not much interaction with other not human beings, but other adults anyway. So we haven't spoken too much on the phone, but you've got a smile on your face this week, and I'm assuming that's not because you've just moved into your new house. I'm assuming it's because Western United finally got a win. Yeah,
we finally got the dub. Finally. It was that was good. It was good. And I'm into my new house, which is good, but it's been a little bit tiring. Had the weekend off after the game. Coaches were good to us, gave us the weekend off, but I was hard yakka painting my house and then moving in on Sunday. So did a bit of extra yardage, but no, it was good. Good to get in, and yeah, it was a good weekend because we did get the win. That was the best part of the weekend.
Yeah, well, let's go straight into that then. It was the first game as well, which was a strange one to have a Friday game at, what was it, 5 o'clock Melbourne time?
Yeah, 6 p.m.
Oh yeah, the time difference. So it's a bit of a strange one, but yeah, Massive for you guys. I actually, I had to go to my wife's Christmas party with her friends, their friends mess, and I've missed the last 10 minutes. I saw you were 1-0 down, watched most of the rest of the game, saw you 1-0 down, and thought, for Western United, it's not good. And then all of a sudden, I get the notifications in our group chat. I think it was from Kat saying Western United. So I quickly chucked it on and saw that you guys ended up getting the win. So just after John got sent off as well for leathering the thing, what was it, the board or whatever it was in front of him.
Yeah, a little sponsorship board in front of him. You said last week on the podcast that you were spending your Friday night 4 hours in front of the TV watching football, and if Orlando starts crying, you're going to tell Carla to take him away. But in actual fact, you're under the thumb. She comes here and said, listen, you're not watching any football. You come into my friend's verse with me. And you've gone, oh, okay, Carla, don't worry. Let's go.
You know what the funniest thing about it? It was literally on a Thursday or a Wednesday. Carla says, oh, we got my friend's Christmas thing. You remember that? I said, you have never told me about this. I said, do I need to come? And she said, of course you need to come. And I was like, oh, I made a couple of small comments about it. And if she listens to this, she'll know. I said, obviously I don't really want to come. It's not my friend. And, and then she's actually on the Friday, I said it again just before I got home after a workout, and she got angry at me. So I thought, what, I've got to go. I was going to actually watch it on my phone. And I thought, I can't even do that now because I've got on the wrong side of it. But when I got in there, when the Adelaide game was about to start, I did drop it. I said, listen, guys, do you happen to have Paramount Plus here? Paramount here? And they said, yeah.
Did they have it?
They had
it.
And it took them about 20 minutes to connect the TV, though, because the Google Chromecast wasn't working. So, two of them were working on it for 20 minutes to, hook it up to the TV. But it got done, watched the Adelaide game, and I got the best of both worlds. So, I didn't see the end of that. But talk us through that, because there was a pretty crazy game. There was a couple of, disallowed goals. There was a penalty where you, I think, went down a little bit soft, and people are saying you've obviously been hanging around me too much, when I think I've only really fucking dived once. It's not even a dive. I went down easy once or twice in one game, and now I've got this tag that I'm diving, but you obviously completely went down too easy there, and you've tried to milk it. The referees fell for it.
Look, the referee's giving a penalty, and my thing with VAR has always been clear and obvious. So I don't know if the rules have changed on that, but for me, it wasn't a clear and obvious error because I've seen him give it and I've seen him not give it. If he doesn't give it, he probably wouldn't give it on VAR after watching it, but there was contact there. He didn't, to be fair to Jay O'Shea, and I said to him on the pitch as well, he didn't put his arm out and he didn't stick his leg out, but it's his hip that's kind of got me as I've turned. So if I can't then go for the ball after I've cut back, then there's got to be something, and I've gone down. So I always get criticised for never going down, and I always miss out on getting penalties. So, yeah, I went down because I felt contact, not because I'd just fallen over. But, yeah, that's all right. It is what it is. I don't really care because we won the game. If we didn't win the game, I'd be sitting here bloody sulking. But it is what it is. That was one. We had another one ruled out. Michael Roos comes onto the pitch. Actually did really well when he came on, but yeah, ran in front of the keeper when Pena's shot, and then he also had another one where he took it down, but it hit his hand, and then it was actually a good finish by him. So no, it was good. We got that energy from the subs. I think it did make a difference being at Amy Park and just sort of actually being able to feel the crowd. They're a bit closer, and I don't know. I just had the feeling in the game that even after we went 1-0 down, no, we're not letting this go. We're not fucking losing again. Not like this. So it wasn't the first time that we've played well since we've been losing games. I think there was probably the games against Wellington, Adelaide, and Newcastle were quite similar in the fact that we were definitely in the game and playing well enough to be in the game, and then for whatever reason just weren't able to actually capitalize on it. But on the weekend we were, and as I said, we had a few goals chalked out, penalty chalked out. John was lively, which is always good to see when your coach is in the game like that as well. And he is usually a very cool, calm, and collected kind of guy.
Was Ross quite vocal? It's obviously hard.
Yeah, no, they both.
They both.
Yeah,
they
were into it. They wanted to win.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's how often do you get that? Brother against brother in a professional match as coaches, especially. And you look at Ross, first year coach. He's pushing for they're pushing for top spot, and John. I'm sure you guys want to be up there, but losing 5-6 games in a row, he needs to win. So it has even more added spice to it. But what I wanted to I guess talk about and give the listeners a bit of insight based on the feedback that we have gotten. People want to understand a bit more of what goes in the clubs, and I think this is a great time to talk about what it's like when you actually do go on a run of bad performances. Well, not bad performances, but losses. At the end of the day, it's a results-based business. So from, I guess, your perspective, over these last 6 weeks, round one, you were buzzing on the podcast, and even when we spoke the next day, you're thinking, we beat City at home, we're going to be right up there this year. Then you lose 6 in a row, even though, like you said, you played really well. How does that change, the players' perspective? What actually then starts happening within the playing group, within the coaching group, within the club? Because it does change, we've been part of it back in the day at Melbourne Heart. I'm sure you've had it at other clubs, but yeah, kind of just from this last 6 weeks, now that you've won, you can talk about it a little bit easier. How much does that change for you as players, and I guess giving the fans a little bit of insight into what it's like for you?
Yeah, I guess, look, the first game, that was actually an away game, so that was an away win for us against Melbourne City. But yeah, look, we're lucky. We're so lucky because John is the way he is, and he's very calm, and he's very much focused on the process and not so much the outcome. And obviously, look, it is a results-based business, so you want to be winning. But I think he always kind of believed that, we aren't far off. And if we keep playing to our structure, and that's the biggest thing that he always reiterates to us is play to your structures, play what we work on in training, do what we work on in training, and eventually the results will come. And I'm not saying that we're out of it because, it's one win, big deal. But it was nice to get that win. And, we didn't really go away from anything that we've done in games before that. And I'm not saying that we've played unbelievable in those games and that, we definitely deserve to win those games. But football is very funny in the sense of momentum, and especially in the A-League being a little bit shorter season to what you've experienced now in Japan and also in Europe, where you've got 38 games. It's only 26 games this season, and you lose 6 in a row early on. That momentum just kills you, and you've seen it in the past with teams Perth Glory, I remember when they went on an unbelievable run at the start of the season, I think when Popper was there, and then it set you up for your whole year because you're not missing out on finals after 10 games, you've won, 9 games. So it gets a little bit scary. And, as I said, as a player here in this country, there's no relegation. So for me, I'm thinking there's nothing to lose. We're already bottom. We got 3 points from 7 games. There's absolutely nothing for us to lose. We should be playing with confidence. We should be playing without fear because what's the worst that can happen? What we keep losing? Well, we're bottom already. So I think it was good to see that from the team. And, we stood up on the weekend. It wasn't just, that it was an easy game and, Brisbane, aren't a good team because they are a very good team. And you've seen what they've done to other teams in the league. And it was a big confidence boost for us because I think they were sitting second before the weekend. And, going into the game, I was thinking, fuck, this is not the best game to sort of come out of a bad run. But we did. We stood up and players stood up and, Lockie Wales was playing back out wide on the right and Pena sort of had more of that free roam as a second 9, almost a false 9. And yeah, I think we looked good and most of our players played well. And that's what you need to win football matches. It's not 1 or 2 players. It's everyone standing up and, Rizzo stood up with a captain's goal. And no, it was good. It was good. And, we just got to keep pushing now because I think that was the game, the light bulb kind of moment to go, you know what, we're not as bad as the table is showing at the moment. We just need to keep going and working the way that we are and eventually it will turn.
Yeah, no, I think you've spoken well there, like you're almost speaking to Channel 10. And that's great.
What do you want me to say?
It's not just the McManus here. I'm Stefan Morg, and it's the Football Friends podcast.
Well, what would you like to hear? What do you want me to say?
I want to hear.
We're very lucky. We're very lucky in the sense that John is very calm in those moments. It's not of course when you're losing the game against Central Coast that was bad. But there's going to be games throughout the season that are like that. Even when you win the title, like we had a game against Wellington at home. We played in Ballarat the season that we won it. We got spanked. I think they beat us 4-1 or 5-1. And after that game, you're coming out of it going, fucking hell, what are we doing wrong? And then you go on to win it. So it's like you are going to have games like that. And that was my fear that, in the games that we were playing well, we still weren't winning. And then I was thinking, fuck, so what's going to happen when we do have a bad night? Because over a 26-game season, you're going to have a few games where you're just shit, where it just doesn't click. Players aren't playing well, and you've got to still find a way to, grind out a result. So, yeah, it's a shit time. There's nothing worse when you're losing 6 games in a row. You're a professional footballer. That's what you get paid to do. And you go out there, you still put the same amount of effort in every day at training and in the games, and then you're coming off the pitch with nothing to show for it. It's the worst thing in the world. But we're, as I said, like, I'm not just saying this because we're on the podcast, but John is so cool, calm and collected in those situations and just keeps telling us to keep doing the things we're working on. And he doesn't go away from that.
Yeah. No, I'm just messing about. Don't worry. John's not listening to this anyway. He's got bigger and more important things to be doing. But no, I think it's it obviously does come down to that. And like the same way, obviously I've had John as well a couple times, and he's a lot more experienced now. Like he's been a manager for a long time. But I think one thing that, it's probably easier for me to talk about it from past teams when it does happen. I think a lot of the things that do start to happen is like the cracks when they start to show is when you do lose those games and you do kind of change maybe the game plan. And that is a beautiful example of like an Ange Postecoglou where the pundits hammer him 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago against Chelsea when they lose. But he's doing the same thing now and everyone's saying how good it is 2 weeks later and because he's winning these last 2 games. I think it was Gary Neville said he's in line for Manchester City to be the top, the top replacement for Pep Guardiola. But 2 weeks ago, he said he's naive. And I think when you have those managers, not saying John is Ange, but when you have a manager as a player that believes in what they're doing and actually keeps sticking to it, as the player, we start to question things. Of course you do, because, if we're losing, we look like shit out there. And of course the manager does as well. Everyone's looking shit. But as the player, you get a bit defensive. There's that change room chatter of people saying, oh, maybe this person should be playing or that person should be playing. Like whether you're winning or losing, that happens in the change room. That's just where footballers where everybody's talking. But if the coach starts to change the way they're doing things as well, I think that's when sometimes questions can get raised within the players, and then you start to lose confidence and have doubts about the game plan. And that's when, if you lose the change room, like it's happened, I'm sure it's happened for you in certain teams. Once that happens, you don't get performances like you guys had the other night. You would have had a Central Coast game, and then you would have had the next game, Brisbane. Maybe you're pumped up for the start of it because everyone's fired up for the first bit, 10, 15 minutes. But then when you go 1-0 down, you probably lose that game 4-0, 5-0 again. And that's when you can see when players are checked out. And it's not intentional as a player. You don't think, I'm going to go out there and give 50%. But, the mind is a crazy thing. And if you're not buying into what the coach is saying, you can't just tell yourself to give 100%. Like you're going out there, and it's hard to be up for the game and to actually give 100% because you got the other team that's also giving 100%. But if their confidence is a lot higher, if their motivation's a lot higher, if they're a lot clearer in their game plan and structures, of course they're going to win and look better for you. So all of a sudden, players look shit one week that were good the last week. Or this year, another great example, Melbourne Victory. Everybody would have said, their players aren't good enough. They didn't get that many new players. All of a sudden, they're good enough this year. Again, they didn't have a different game plan, but that confidence and that, I guess, little bit of like change in momentum, it means everything.
Momentum's huge. Momentum's huge. Like, I think people underestimate momentum, and sometimes you'll have a fixture and it's against a team that haven't been on a great run, and you're thinking we can steal points here, and then you might verse them later on in the season. It's like a completely different game, completely different team. And it's just maybe when they're going through a bit of a bad patch. Like you look at, Sydney FC at the start of the season, Melbourne City are going through a bit of a bad patch, but you don't want to play. You still don't want to play them. It's not as if you're going in and you're going, they're just shit. Like, that if they click, they've got the quality there. And I think all the teams are like that in the A-League. So, and it is, like you said, one of probably the most important things about anything, and Ange emphasised that in his interview with Ferdinand, is the characters that you've got in the change room. And as I said, we're lucky as well with that. We don't really have anyone that throws their toys out the pram, and everyone's kind of willing to,
besides the left
hard. I throw my toys out the pram, but that probably helps me when I play. But like we don't really have any characters that are going to sort of go around the change room and start to maybe have that sort of cancer effect where you're starting to get people offside with the coaches and things like that. We're lucky. We do have a good change room, and that's why it's even more disheartening when you're going through that period, because you're thinking, it feels like everyone's working hard. It feels like we're trying to do the right things, and it's just not happening. So, we got a long way to go, but it was a good win. I think that's enough about our game anyway.
Was there other games in the round?
Yeah, apparently. Adelaide United, Western Sydney.
Yeah, momentum, as you're talking about, that's 3 losses in a row, I think, for Adelaide potentially now. So again, you got a young team. It's hard to turn around that, but it was actually a reason, like for the amount that I could watch at my missus' friend's mess. They played all right. They hit the post. I think Javi Lopez hit the post at the end. They had an offside goal. Western Sydney got the red card, but you know what? It wasn't a bad performance. But when things are going your way, like early in the year, they're scoring 6 goals or 5 goals or whatever it was against City, and now you can't score a goal. So they'll turn it around. And Western Sydney looks solid at home. It was a great goal from Dylan. Unbelievable finish, to be honest. I don't know if he meant it, but
nah, he meant it. He's got like these long limbs, and just like he's obviously fast. That wasn't like because he was fast, but he just somehow like gets to things like that. And to be fair, like he used to do it in training all the time. He was just like, you wouldn't see him, and then he would all of a sudden like just come alive, like when the ball's in the box, and just he can score a worldie. He's got that in him.
Yeah, ridiculous. Good, goal worthy of winning the game. And then the Saturday game, Jets v Glory. I actually again, like I had to, having a kid now, it's great, but it's not good. But when you're trying to watch the end of a football game now, you can't actually just say, listen, Orlando, just wait there. I'll change the nappy in 5 minutes when he wants to go. So I actually thought Glory won that game until the next day when I saw someone commenting about, Perth Glory can't hold on to the lead again. And I was thinking, wait, what? And so Jets have obviously scored the late equaliser, Bahaja off the bench. which is, I guess, not a good result for either of those teams. They both want to be winning those games. But the Saturday night, the best fixture of the round, I did watch the full 90 minutes with this one. Our guest, Bruno, we had to watch him. We had to see how he would go. We're hoping for 4 goals again, but he settles for a single, and he was quality. He set up the first goal with a quick free kick, smart free kick. Without him, it was a great finish by Arzani, but, Bruno's, I guess, quick thinking to put it down, to play the free kick. And Sydney weren't terrible, but Victory were much better. Victory were much better, and they deserved to win that game. So they're dangerous. And coming into the Christmas derby this week, it's actually going to be a massive game, because it's probably the first time that Victory have been so much better than City. Obviously, it's not a lot of points, but they're actually the more dominant team. So it's the first time in probably 4 or 5 years. So big pressure on Victory to, I guess, keep this going. If they win that game going into Christmas, it will be massive for them. And Sunday, speaking of City, the 3-3 thriller, bit of a weird game, to be honest. I guess they both played midweek. So yeah, Torres scores a hat trick. He actually could have scored a couple more as well.
Yeah.
It was a weird game. But what was your, I guess, from what you saw of that, what was your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange game. Like, just open chances, a lot of chances. I think, City, they do well in the end, probably to steal that goal and get a point. But obviously, for them, that they would want to be winning those games. But, Central Coast are a funny one. At the start of the season, everyone was going, nah, they've lost these players. They're going to be no good. And, they're playing well. And they've got players that are standing up. And obviously, Torres, they've brought him in. That was probably the first game where he's really lit it up. And he's got serious quality. Like, he's, had great pedigree and where he's come from. And obviously, Tulio Nisbet's been unbelievable. And then their back 4 is still very solid with, obviously, Booker as well. So we'll see with Central Coast. I think you just got to see, they absolutely popped us when we went there. So, but yeah, no, it was a top game. 6 goals. It's always a good game. And yeah, City showed good character. Arslan is he's got so much quality, that guy. I think he must be probably in the driver's seat at the moment for the Johnny Warren, because he's also been contributing with goals and assists, which we weren't sure if he would get as many of them, but he's been standing up big.
And there was a guest in the stands as well. Paddy Kisnorbo is back in town. Obviously watching City play. It'll be interesting to see what he looks to do with his next move. Obviously, I think it's Troyes is how you pronounce it. He got relieved of his duties from there, which is, it's always disappointing to see an Aussie coach, let go. But that's the world of football. It's brutal. You go from winning the championship, being unbelievable at City a couple of years in a row, to relegation and then struggling in League Two, and he'll be better for it. I believe. We've both worked with him, and he's a hard worker. He's someone that wants to get better. So it'll be interesting to see what comes next for him. And then going into our last game, the Monday night football, which I really enjoy because I'm not getting out and about too much, but good crowd as well for the Bulls. They're probably their best crowd of the season by a lot. So I don't know where these other people come from, but it wasn't the performance they wanted to put on to keep these fans coming back. They just looked tired. They looked really tired. I guess they traveled to the Philippines, I think it was midweek, in that must-win game to get through to the next round. So it's great that them and Central Coast are through to the next round. City, disappointingly, in the Champions League, copped the goal right at the end. But yeah, that was terrible. That was crazy.
They dominated that game.
Should have scored 5 or 6. Yeah. And it's not good for Australian football, because now with the new competition next year, you want the points, the max points possible as well, so we get more allocations. But hopefully Central Coast and Macarthur, hopefully they both make the final and play against each other in that, so we can get some points. And I think it's a $2 million payday for the winner. So it's not bad. It's not ridiculous. It's not ridiculous money, but for a club, $2 million, and the players, I'm sure, will get a negotiated percentage of that. That's good money. That's good money for a club to get. So that will be interesting. And Wellington, again, they looked down. I think it was Newcastle. They got smashed last week. and then
3-0,
just another easy win, and that was without Zavado as well. So it's a very, very open A-League. I think that's all, honestly what this points to. Anyone can beat anyone. We say it every week, but it's true. Anyone really can beat anyone. If you're a little bit off it, you're going to get spanked. So it's it's quite interesting. And Arsenal are top of the league, which is great to see in the Premier League. Big game this week, Arsenal against Liverpool. I'll be getting up to watch that one. Orlando will have his Arsenal kit on. The onesie is on. And
did you get him one? Does he have one?
Yeah, he's got a onesie. Well, I didn't get him.
That's
one of Carla's cousins got him a onesie. It's meant for a 1-year-old, but he'll be wearing it. He'll be wearing it.
Doesn't matter.
So
get it on.
And he better not shoot.
Disappointing for Liverpool. Disappointing. Yeah. Couldn't believe it when I woke up and saw 0. I honestly thought that they would create a lot of chance in that game, but draw. It'll be it's a big game in the Prem this week, and it's good to see our two teams up there because there's been a lot of times in our life that one of the teams has just been shit house. So it is good to see them up there, and obviously City continue with their kind of struggles at the moment. And we actually did before this week say that it was going to be a top week in the A-League, and it was a very, very good week in the A-League. So especially because West United won.
And that, I guess, is the segment into our guest, Nick Galatas. I think if I've said that correctly, he is the chairman of the AAFC, and he is going to be talking all things second division.
Nick Galatas.
Nick Galatas. Traditional clubs. Their blood is strong. We've got to take a step forward a little bit and take a bit of a risk. That's what we're trying to build for the game.
So today's special guest, we have Nick joining us from the AAFC. Thank you very much for jumping on.
G'day, boys. Thanks very much for having me.
I think, something that we've obviously had a few exchanges over X or Twitter or whatever it is, and it's something that a few of the listeners keep tagging you or tagging me and saying get him on. So we've had a few second division discussions on here. We want to talk about all things Australian football, whether it's talking to current players, ex-players. We want the game to grow, and I think you want the game to grow as well from everything you're putting out there. So I guess the best place, in a shortened version is, can you kind of explain exactly the AAFC and how it was formed, why it was formed, and how that's now translated into, I guess, the national second tier or national second division, whatever we want to call it?
Yep, I can. And Stef, can I just, it's part of, if I can just briefly, as part of your first comments about our couple of exchanges and the like on Twitter, I was thinking about this yesterday after I agreed to come on, and I thought, we're on the same side. We all want the game to grow. You guys, everyone actually, even the people who get on there and are against what I say or others who are against what others say, we're only talking to each other because we're all talking about the game. So at the end of the day, we're all on the one side. And, people often say, why is it that football people, shoot each other down, kill each other? And I'm thinking it's because we actually are talking about the one thing. We're actually talking about the game. So I'm really great that you guys have got your show on and you get people on, because what the game, I think, lacks is more of what you do. More of this conversation, getting people on there, getting views, getting opinions. That's great. So firstly, well done from my part. Congratulations for doing it, because I think you guys are conversation starters and you're enablers of what goes on, and that's great. So I think we're all on the same page. I want to make that clear. People, I think, start, why do you hate A-League? I don't hate the A-League. I just make that clear. I just don't hate the A-League. I don't hate anybody, anything. I can't remember what and who I hate, and I think I joke about it, but when I go out with my wife, I have to ask her, remind me who I don't like, because I end up talking to people that I'm supposed to not to like, but I can't remember. So I just want to be clear, right? Now, AAFC, look, we were formed, getting on for 7 years. It was March 2017. So March 2017, it'll become 7 years. Now, people might have heard me speak about this a bit. I'm a bit proud of it, because it's actually, I think, and I haven't looked it up, maybe someone else can, probably some sort of record, some sort of unprecedented event that more than 80 clubs, and I repeat that, more than 80 clubs, came to Melbourne, probably say 60 from outside Melbourne. There were probably about 12, 20 odd Melbourne teams, turned up the Sports House on a Monday night, I think it was March 20, if I remember correctly, 2017, to gather and to effectively ask for a voice from our, authorities, Football Australia and the member federations, because these clubs were frustrated. All NPL teams, they came from as far as Townsville, Fremantle, South Hobart, ACT, Newcastle, all the major cities from, Perth and Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne, of course, Brisbane, Gold Coast. So everywhere in Australia, we're a massive country, right? And these clubs, on relatively short notice, came down they gathered in Melbourne. I think we had a bit of credibility down here because we had stood up as an organiser, and other clubs in Victoria had stood up as a group before that in relation to the formation of the NPL in Victoria and the difficulties with that and what that meant. And I can touch on that more later and why that was sort of a corollary to the A-League and how that really restricted clubs and forced them to be what they're not formed to be by their members. So they all came down to listen to what we had to say as a bunch of Melbourne people, and we formed AAFC really that night. We elected an interim board. We notified everyone, including FIFA. We were accepted. We in July of that year, 2017, we had formal elections and elected our first formal board with our first permanent chairman in Robbie Graham after Tom Callis had been the interim chair. And we then proceeded to engage with the member federations of Football Australia. And the next thing that happened, which was out of our control, was the Football Australia convened Congress discussions that FIFA, you might remember, came to Australia and helped convene. And we just became part of that because we had formed that we were representing NPL clubs, which by and large were not members of the member federations. So another major thing that's just happened that you guys may or may not be aware about is that in Football Victoria recently adopted a resolution for clubs to once again become members of the federation, something that hasn't been the case for about 15 plus years. Now, people are amazed. I go around talking to people in the game, coaches, players, parents who are involved in local football in Victoria. They can't believe when I tell them that their club is not a member of Football Victoria. Right? They just can't believe it. So that's a sort of thing that's anathema to our game. That's different to what we would expect to be the case as football people. And that's recently been adopted as a resolution by Football Victoria. And I congratulate them and the members of Football Victoria that pressed that and the people that have pushed it for many, many years. But we as clubs weren't members of that or Football Australia. And the NPL was a Football Australia program. Right? So that's how we became a part of that and a provisional member now of Congress. Of Football Australia, and we have then resolved really one of our major resolutions was to reform the national second tier, which is what the NPL was and still is until the NSD is formed. So we got together and thought this is not a natural, normal second division. That's how we understand it, whether we're players, coaches, fans, sponsors, supporters, whatever. 100 clubs around the country is not a national second division. So that was just really, I don't know what that was meant to be, and I go into it, but I won't. And we just thought, well, let's fix it. And part of fixing, therefore, part of having an NSD is fixing also what's below, because there are clubs that are too big and clubs that are too small to fit in one basket, in one line. So by having a properly structured pyramid, what happens is clubs find a place that they fit better. They can better serve their community. So that's us. That's what we started to do. And in doing it, we ended up, I suppose, starting with the NSD because once we established that, then we can fix the rest.
Yeah. So was that the vision on the first night when you guys all met? Was that always the vision? So was that in the future?
I should have got our little slide up, and I'll find it somewhere. But we had a nice little slide up on the board, and one of the main number one aim was to have a voice for us as clubs, and to reform the national second tier, which is the NPL system. And by that, we all voted on that night to press for a formal, a proper national second tier, national second division, call it what you want, a level below that first division. And just on that, and I've had massive arguments and debates with people about can you be second or first if you're on your own. So the A-League, unfortunately, while it's clearly our top tier, because that's how it's established, there's no argument about that. To call it a first division is a bit hard because there's no link. So you can't be first, second, third or fourth if you're on your own. And I always joke to people, if you're running around an oval by yourself, did you come first or last? So until we're linked, there's no real first or second, but it's clear, and I don't want to mince words, clear that the A-League is our intended and is our top division. So what we wanted to do is form a competition, as the FA has now announced this, that will sit below the A-League but above the NPL, which becomes a national competition and a national second tier. So that was an aim then. That was part of one of the things that we formed to do, but it wasn't. It developed as an idea through after that night as well, because initially we were just wanting to reform what we had. Everybody was frustrated. You got to understand, people fly in from around the country to express frustrations, and they're meeting for the first time, and they are, electing a committee and they are formulating a few ideas that we had put out to them, obviously in advance of the meeting with a constitution. So these things take a bit of time to develop and formulate, and that's how it evolved.
Yeah, and I think what I'm curious, I guess, then to know is we've recently had the announcement from Football Australia about the 8 teams. We'll go into a little bit more about the other teams that were going to come into that. But from those 80 existing teams that joined at the start, is everybody on the same page, or do you have teams that have now dropped out of that, or everybody literally is like, even if, you've got your South Melbourne that's, pushing, they want to be in it, and then you've got, let's say, another team, a Metro Stars from Adelaide, who are maybe not ready to come in, but they still want the second division. Is that how it's viewed within the group, or are people kind of dropped off from the start?
No. One of the great, or most heartening things for me in all of this, Stefan, is that the collaboration and the unity of the clubs from day one. It's just been amazing. I've just been really, really impressed, I have to say. I mean, we've got a reputation as arguing among ourselves, etc., but that's all on-field stuff. The clubs, I think, have shown a great maturity in all of this. And I've been surprised. I've been pleasantly surprised by it. I shouldn't be, maybe, but I was. And I thought that might be a bit of looking out for number one moral, but no, we've from about August 2020, when we formed what we termed our partner group, and we got together, self-selected effectively 34 teams who put up some money to fund what we had to do to prepare reports and to do all sorts of research and the like in advocating for this competition. Those 34 teams really stuck together all the way through. A couple dropped out, but not many. We got to about, I think, 30 or 32 that signed the report. And then from there, when Football Australia announced its EOI in February this year, I think we had 32 applicants, most of whom, almost all of them, but not all, were our members, a couple of words. And then from the 26 that went through to the RFP phase, almost all were our members. I think we're 21, 22 or 23, I forget what it was, but it was just nearly all of them. And of these 8 that are in, all our members now, and they've all stayed strong. And it's been our vision all along. You'll see it in our AAFC report that what we want is pro-rel with the NPL, at least, because that's what we control. That was our remit. We can't speak for the A-League. Obviously, we one day would like that to happen, but we're sticking to in our lane. And what we wanted to do was have pro-rel with the NPL as soon as possible, and we still do, because we want to link all clubs and give them all a chance. It won't be about the first 8, 9, 10, 12, which start. It'll be about all the clubs.
Yeah. Well, that actually is a good one, because that leads into the next point, which is something that I don't have the information on. You probably know a little bit more on it. But so how are the state bodies then? Because looking from I'm a fan. Same with Ben. We're players, obviously, in the A-League. We've been overseas, or I'm overseas. But at the end of the day, we're Australian football fans, like you touched on at the start. We just want the game to grow. And the fighting that happens within, club to club, no worries. That can happen. That's kind of good. It's a good conflict. But the fighting that you see within the state federations to the clubs, when, someone like Football Queensland, for example, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but they've obviously said, I think it's the Sunshine Coast Fire potentially, and Brisbane United. So a team that's non-existent right now, they don't want them to come into the league. And if they come into a second division, and if they get relegated, they get to go to the bottom of the pyramid. And same with Suncoast Fire. How do the teams then look at that? And how does that work? Because if I'm an investor, if I'm putting in millions of dollars to Brisbane United or Sunshine Coast Fire, and I know I'm in the second division, but we could potentially get relegated to the 8th division, I'm probably not putting my money in. So how is that going to work? Because in my eyes, if that isn't sorted, it's kind of how does it start then? Because there's always going to be problems.
Look, Stefan, obviously I agree. I mean, you make a very good point. I've said as much, I've said as much on Twitter and elsewhere. I've said it privately, I've said it publicly. I mean, that's 101, isn't it? I mean, but I'll say this, a couple of things. You asked about the member feds and are they all on the same page and what they're doing. I think they mostly are. I don't quite understand where Football Queensland's coming from. I don't want to say too much about it because Football Australia will deal with it, I think, as well, and so will Football Queensland in due course. Now, I'll start with Football Queensland taking their position at their highest and at its best. I mean, the way it's expressed, and they're saying, I think they've said officially and formally in response to some of the things that I and others have said on X or Twitter, that look, we Football Queensland, they say, are taking the purer view, the purest form, and that is that if you're in an NPL team now, you're in the top division of Queensland. If you go up to the NSD, you've gone up a division. If you come down, you go down a division. If you come from somewhere else, you don't. Now, what I've got to say about that is that we're in a unique position, right? And we've got to have, who's our leader? And now if we say it's Football Australia, that's our national federation. And it has, in its wisdom, said we will call upon any applicant and we will assess any applicant. And we all supported that. AAFC supported it, the club supported it. We didn't turn around and say, oh, no, it only has to be NPL top teams that will apply. No one else need apply. It could be combinations within NPL. It could be other teams from anywhere. Preston came through and got selected, and they're in NPL 2, it was. I forget what it's called anymore, but they're in the second division in Victoria. South Australia had a reserved position for a bunch of clubs that they were considering. Let's say they got in. What happens to them? They get relegated to some ridiculous division. So they called upon other clubs to put in applications. Sunshine Coast Fire did. Brisbane United formed in between 2 or 3 clubs. These combinations and permutations were encouraged by Football Australia. That was flagged that it would be encouraged from a while back. We also understood and said no problem. And we, I think, have that in our report that said no problem. It can be anybody. Doesn't need to be just an NPL team. Touching on your unity point earlier that you raised with me, against that background, the club still stuck together. No club said, oh, why is so-and-so applying? Why is Preston, a front runner from Victoria and now selected when they're not in the NPL? Nobody said that. They were part of our group, a welcome member of our group, and an active participant and contributor to our group. Nobody said, what's Preston doing there? So that was part of what I'm talking about. And within that context, along comes Football Queensland and makes up its own inconsistent rule. Now, irrespective of the logic behind it and its rationale, which I can respect. It's not the point. The point is who's running the show, and how does that collaborate with what we're trying to achieve. And so but what I say there, look, I'll put this out publicly, and I've sort of said at the clubs, right? Sometimes we've got to take a step forward a little bit and take a bit of a risk. You talked about your millions of dollars, okay, and how you might not want to invest. But at the same time, Stefan, I'll put it to you differently, and I've said this to the clubs. You're a football guy, you know how it works. And if let's say you took the punt and you said, you know what, it's not resolved yet, but I'll back Sunshine Coast Fire, or I'll back Brisbane United, or some other team that's caught by this rule. Let's play it out. What happens in practice? You're selected, right? Your team is selected. You're now at the end as they kicks off. It's 2025. We're playing. There's no immediate relegation. That's part of the deal. In 2026 or 27, and we're on a show like this. Remember, there's now media. There's a competition. People are playing against each other. We're all talking. It's all happening, right? And now we've started to talk relegation. The concept that Preston might get relegated, or South Melbourne for that matter, or Sydney Olympic for that matter, and they'll go back to NPL 1 in their competition. Preston, by jumping theoretically a division after they've been considered by FA good enough to be in the second tier, South Melbourne and the Olympic examples going back to their NPLs, but Brisbane United being relegated out of existence. I mean, that wouldn't work. Nobody would accept it in the game. You two guys wouldn't accept it. No fan that I know would accept it. No club in that competition would accept it. And it would just be resolved because that's how life works. So I encourage people to take the step forward, and I'll say it publicly, because fighting it in theory in advance of happening, it causes, results in these sorts of issues where, what if, and I'm a lawyer, and people come to me and ask me all the time, Nick, what do you think of this contract? And I can give them 26 reasons why they shouldn't do it. Legally, then on the side, I say, you know what? It's a good deal, right? Do it. Because, if you go to your lawyers, they'll give you all sorts of good reasons why you shouldn't do things. It's their job in a way, right? That's why you speak to them. And that's why you might go and get legal advice on an issue. And your lawyer's job is to tell you what the problems are and to tell you what the risks are. You know what? Don't jump off that bungee jump. This might happen. But, in the end, it's your decision, accepting all the risks and knowing what they are. So I think, as disappointed as I am and as frustrated as I am with Football Queensland's approach and their rationale, and I understand where they're coming from, but I disagree with it, right? And maybe the difficulty that Football Australia has had in fixing it in advance, so that now we would have 2 or 3 Queensland teams as part of our foundation clubs, and we'll be talking 12 teams, not 8, as part of our foundation clubs, which I think will still happen. It hasn't happened, but I think these clubs should now press forward, because if they get selected and we are having a competition that we're playing and we're in season 3, no one in the world will accept the Brisbane United who's competed for 3 or 4 years, because you want the bounce back, don't you? Isn't the whole idea here is that if you go down, you might come back up? Now, if you go down and you can't come back up, what's the point? The whole idea here is that we want this competitive angst, so that if a team will go, okay, you've dropped the division, come back again. And that's what we're building for the A-League as well, I hope, so that if we become a top platform and someone drops down, that's not the end of them. They can come back into the A-League. And whereas now they can't. Let's face it, if an A-League team were to drop into the NPL, it's all over. So that's what we're trying to build for the game. And I think we all need to, even where impediments are put in front of us, such as the one from Football Queensland, as much as it rationalises it and it explains it, it's an impediment, because clearly that's what's happened. Clubs haven't put their foot forward. Then I just think let's just effectively drive through those impediments, because they will iron themselves out, as football does. And that's how the world works. I can say that as someone who's nearly 60.
Yeah. I think, theoretically, it sounds great. And look, the pyramid is sort of 3/4 of the way built, with the NPL systems around Australia already being in place. So it would be great to, after, I don't know exactly how long it is until after it starts, that there could be a promotion relegation. But let's talk, I suppose, a little bit more literally about how that could look with the NST. So let's say the teams are in the NST, and then there's obviously the teams from around the country that are playing in their local NPL. Is there going to be certain requirements of the teams for them to be promoted? I know that in some countries around the world, I think in Japan, isn't it, that there's a few teams in J2 that actually, even if they came top, wouldn't be allowed because of certain things that they don't have, or requirements they don't have, whether it's infrastructure, state, things like that. Yeah. Will there be those kinds of things that will need to be in place? I'm talking if a smaller NPL club was to get promoted.
Yeah, and that's part. Look, that ties in with what Football Australia's talked about in connection with its licensing arrangement as well. So they've come in and they've talked, and James Johnson has spoken to this time and again about part of the FA's level principles, and part of one of them is licensing, one of them is so that people have got a benchmark as to what they're trying to achieve. Now, a lot of that's still in flux. I think it hasn't really been set in stone, but I can tell you, Ben, that as part of the application process, clubs were required to meet certain criteria and certain standards. They did. So the ones that come in will have all met those standards. And then, of course, the ones that are to come in later. And I should go back a step. There's hopefully will be at least 4 more that will come in, 2 to 4 more that will come in by the early part of next year. So we'll start with 12 is my hope, but 10 I think is a minimum. But I really believe we'll get 12. But that's just my view. So that they will also have met the criteria. And then with a pro-rel scenario, when it happens, as you say, put aside the competition model that will be in place to select those teams. Yes, there will be that team that wins it, let's say, or that qualifies via that model will have had to meet certain criteria. You won't get a team that's playing out of a park. But equally, what assists that is that the NPL criteria are coming along as well. So they are too far behind. So that clubs that are already playing after that, there won't be applications. They'll be coming out of the NPLs, and therefore they'll be coming out of the top comps in the States, and they will be meeting their criteria. And they'll also know what the criteria needs to be to get promoted into the second division. So the idea is that they're working towards it, which links us, of course, into their applications to their councils, governments, and the like for funding for that purpose. And that's what enables the whole unlocking of funding in our game, which is a whole other topic, but that's part of it.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. Sorry, Steph.
Go on. Go on.
With those 2 to 4 teams, I didn't want to interrupt you while you're speaking. With those 2 to 4 teams, is there a focus on having them outside of Victoria and New South Wales? I think everyone's kind of come out and said that, we want this to be an Australia-wide competition. Is there a push for that?
It's not for me to say, but clearly, I think there's no. I don't think it's. I'll be speaking out of turn, or it's not controversial to say that it will be very useful to have Queensland in the competition. And I think there's a major focus on, as we discussed, resolving those issues and getting Queensland involved, and hopefully at least one other state or territory, at least one other, I would have thought. Hopefully Tassie's very close. I know that they're very close to their bid, and they've put in an excellent bid. And I personally, just personal view, and nothing to do with AAFC or Football Australia, would love to see them, a team from Tassie in the national comp, which they never seem to get one. And I think the second division is the perfect sort of platform for a Tasmanian side in terms of size and fit. So, and we've got a great applicant, so I'd love to see that come through. So I'd say, Ben, yes, we're looking to make it broader. We don't need to be in every state or territory. I think that's unnecessary. We fall for this idea of national meaning everywhere. It doesn't have to be. Australia's not like that. Our population is very eastern seaboard. We all know that. But that doesn't mean Sydney and Melbourne. It means obviously some other states as well. So great to start with 4. It doesn't mean we won't get one more out of Melbourne. We've only got 3 in Melbourne. I wouldn't exclude that. And I can see that we've got some very strong applicants. But of course, Queensland, Tassie, I want South Australia to get organised as well, but I'm not sure.
Adelaide City. We both played for Adelaide City, so that's the most logical one. That would be unbelievable.
Stefan, I'm happy to tell you that as you know, they were part of our partner group all the way. They expressed an interest. You know that was announced. They were in the RFP phase, and then they had their own internal challenges about which I don't want to speak, and I'm not qualified to speak. But they're an iconic team, aren't they? I mean, you know, you two, you're closer to it than me. I just know Adelaide City from following them from afar, and I can tell you that if they're in, the Melbourne and Sydney teams in particular, and Brisbane would just love it. They would love the games. I mean, I'm an ex-South Melbourne chairman. A game at Lakeside between South Melbourne and Adelaide City will be packed, right? And I'll be there, right? And just be packed. I mean, it goes without saying, it's not a secret. It'd be great to see them in, and I really hope they can get organised because it's a no-brainer for me. But just a bit of work has to be done behind the scenes to get them sorted.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, even just like hearing you speak about it and even looking at Ben's face, like the excitement of seeing that, because the rivalries, I'm so passionate about the A-League, because without the A-League, I don't know if I would have had a professional career. And what the A-League teams have done, the money they've invested, the infrastructure that they've slowly been building, I think people can't look past that because it's millions of dollars. And I understand some people's views on it to close shop. It's not the way football should be done. I agree with that as well. But for that time being, I think it was Frank Lowy that came in and obviously said, this is what we're doing. And it was great at the time. It's probably what was needed. But now we are at a different point. And I think if we can get some of these iconic teams, it's not about the Italians against the Greeks, against the Croatians, but those people, if they're passionate, as we saw in the Women's World Cup, that's what brings football to life. So I do want it to come. I still think I'll be going for Adelaide United against Adelaide City now because of the affiliation there. But you know what? If they were playing tomorrow, that in a an A-League game or a second division team, if Adelaide got relegated, that would be sold out. That would be sold out so quickly. And I think that would happen, like you said, all around the country. So hopefully one day it does come to it. But we've got a couple more quick questions from us before we go into the questions from the people on X, because we don't want to keep you for too much longer. But I guess in your eyes, do you genuinely see the national second tier and the A-League coming together? Would you prefer that to happen first? And the connection, will that be easier to connect those two than connecting, let's say, the NPL and the national second tier? What's your view on that? And is that going to be possible?
I think, I think the NPL and the NST are easier fits to start with. I'd like to see it all connected, and I wanted to see yesterday, but it's not going to happen. And one of the reasons I wanted this to happen sooner rather than later, the NSTs, because the sooner it happens, the sooner we will stop the drifting away, right? And we'll be able to bridge the gap, and the gap's growing, and we're stopping clubs from growing. So I think what we need to do is prevent silos. Now, you said what you said earlier, Stefan, about the A-League. Okay, you get into a debate about whether it was right or wrong, but it's there, right? It's there. So, and what I mean by that, sorry, I know you're laughing, Ben, is that I'm not against, I don't now personally have any issue, right? My problem is with the A-League is that its structure, right? Not the way it was selected, I'm over all that, and the way but its current structure causes problems. And not by, and I don't mean that personally with anybody, I don't mean anyone within the A-League, I just mean the concept of it, the structure of it. Right? I don't point the finger at anyone in particular and say you club or you person or you this or you that. Not relevant, because if I'm in that role, I'd be following that structure. It's why when the grand final decision was made, whatever it was made a year ago, and I came out and said, well, that's what the A-League will do because it's in its nature to do that. The problem is the nature, which causes it to do that, right? So it's not the person who made the decision. I get where Danny came from back then, right? But he was coming from a position of that's what his job is. Why is it his job? What structure have we created? So the structure of the A-League is such that makes the connection with the NST a bit harder. We need to work on that a bit. That hasn't happened yet. The NST with the NPL structures are more aligned, and I think they can happen and should happen, in my view, sooner rather than later, to prevent a further silo from emerging and another set of clubs that are above the next level that then again has the same effect that we're now talking about with the A-League. So I would like to see that happen sooner rather than later. What that will mean is that we will build a number of clubs below that are capable and strong of coming up and down within that competition. And it's in our report, we'd like to see that in 10 years, there will be 25 teams that have played, taken part in this second division. Some will, of the 14, let's say there will be a part of it in 10 years or 16. There'll be 8 or 9 or 10 outside it that will have said, I played in that for 3 years and I'm going to get back next year or whatever it might be. So that's what we're looking for. So I don't, as I say, with the A-League have any issue other than how does that structure that we put in place, because what we did, Stefan, is we closed it and privatised it at the same time. I keep saying it's not that we privatised it or that we closed it, is that we did both. So we created the incentives to keep it closed and keep it privatised, and created a self-perpetuating model that doesn't allow a linking, whether we want it or not. And what we're finding now is that slowly, and ever so slowly, we're breaking down those barriers, and the game is just finding that level again. And now it's come back a bit. I mean, there's no doubt it's come back, and the NST is now emerging. And those two things means it is inexorably, whatever you or I or Ben or anyone else thinks, whatever we want, they're coming together, right? It's just a natural force that is forcing these clubs closer together. So it's not a matter of opinion. It's a matter of what's happening. And that's why, and I'm actually encouraged by that. So, I can see the linking eventually.
I was just going to say, I completely agree. To be honest, I've been in Japan. I played in Holland. When I was in Holland, I'm wearing my NEC kit today, and we got relegated. It was a strange thing because coming from Australia, you've obviously you watch world football, so you know what happens. But going through the experience, it was heartbreaking for the fans, and we were barricaded in at the end of the game. They had to put all the wooden boards on the glass so they didn't smash it. We stayed in there for about 3 hours. And now NEC are back in the top division. So they went down, they regrouped, they got back up. And I think it it's going to develop the players more because the players learn we need to win. So what does winning actually mean? It's not just about playing a style of football.
Exactly.
Going to Europe, it will set the players up better for that, as Ben experienced in Scotland as well with relegation. And now being in Japan, seeing a league that's so young, I think it was just their 30th year anniversary. They've got J1, J2, J3, JFL. They've just gone to 20 teams in J1, 20 teams in J2, 18 in J3. It can be done, but we just need everyone on the same page, and more teams, more media, more people talking about football. That's better for all of us. So we'll go into the questions now. So Ben, do you want to go off with, I think it's SME MUFC. Do you want to go with that one?
Yeah, just before I get into that question, I think it's a great point that you make. And look, as football fans that we are, I want to see it link up as soon as possible, because it's not just going to be great for the game here, which that's probably the biggest thing, but I'm thinking about, those memories when I was overseas, and that's going to give players invaluable experience when they go overseas, being in those situations of promotion, relegation, and they know what it's like. They've done it in Australia. They've been at a team that was, fighting relegation. The fans are going to care so much more, because right now you get to the end of the A-League season and your team's bottom of the league and they can't do anything. Well, what are the fans are thinking? I'm not going to these fucking games. Why am I going to go to these games? They're bottom of the league.
I wanted to say, you guys are the footballers here, not me. And at the level I've played at, I can't compare. So I don't want to say too much about mine. But it doesn't matter in a sense, what level you play at. The concept's the same. And I've watched, the game all my life. I'll touch on 4 words that Stefan said. He used the words a style of play, right? And I think what we've lost here, and what I think administrators don't get and players get and fans get, is that a style of play doesn't matter how attractive it is. It's only beautiful and attractive if it's within the context of what you're trying to achieve, right? If you're playing a style, no matter what you're trying, it becomes Harlem Globetrotter stuff, right? You can look fantastic, but if you're not winning anything, you're not doing anything. If you're losing, I remember a game years and years and years ago, Newcastle, I think it was, versus Melbourne Victory, and I think, watching a bit of it. I shouldn't say that aloud, but I was watching a bit of it. And I think Newcastle were like second last or last, and they're 1-0 down with a few minutes to play, and they're knocking the ball out of the back and they're playing it. I'm thinking, that's just not natural, right? You're trying to get a point here. Your second last game of the season, you need to be getting a point away to victory to try to survive, and you're playing a style of play. Now, the fans are appreciating the style of play. They'd rather see Route 1 football today because they've got to get a point. Now, when you're on top, knock it about all you like. They'll appreciate that too. And I think unless we do it in a natural way, so football is played by everybody according to their abilities and needs and circumstances, nobody will take it seriously. And I think that's what and now real fans, and what's left now with the A-League, to give it its due, is that real fans. So I listen to what A-League fans are saying now, because those people who are currently going to A-League games are actual fans of the game. We've gone out, we've passed all the theatre goers that were going at the start who weren't really fans, but they were just having a bit of a look and they'd moved on. With the big crowds, and they could say what they like. I wouldn't listen to them for 5 seconds. But the current fans, I don't criticise them one bit, and they get on Twitter or whatever, because they are actual fans, no matter which club it is. And that's why they reacted as they did with the grand final decision and other decisions, and why they support mostly, A-League fans support mostly the NSD, which is the beautiful thing about it. They can't vote for their club as members, because they're not members, only ticket holders. But if they could, they'd all be saying, let's have this. That's the great irony. So the owners might, and I think a lot of them wanted to be honest, but a lot of them might have had reservations in the past, but their fans would love it. So that's where we've got this disconnection.
Yeah. Let's I'll jump onto the question, because I get sidetracked. We always do on here. We could go on for hours, but we got to try and keep it as engaging as we can for our listeners. I'm sure they're loving this chat. But at SME MUFC, it's unfortunate, Manchester United supporter, it would be great to hear why Nick believes NST is viable for clubs, despite the fact that A-League franchises are losing millions. It would be good for him to explain how the annual NST license fee to FA works, how travel costs will be covered, and how P&R with MPL, promotion and relegation, MPL, will be achieved. we've already touched on the promotion and relegation.
Yeah, I won't add much to that because that's still to be worked out. That there might be a national comp at the end that deals with that, a bit of a playoff system as well. Maybe there will be something with the bottom side of the NSD or second bottom or third bottom playing off. That's still up in the air, hasn't been resolved. I can give you my opinion and the AAFC's opinion, but at the end of the day, that'll be worked out as we go. That hasn't yet been resolved. And Football Australia, obviously, are going to be the ultimate determinant of that. But the clubs would love to see that ASAP. As far as travel costs and participate, so the participation fee, its purpose is to cover the administration of the competition, which FA will run. So the FA cost, its internal costs associated with administering the game, and paying for all sorts of things to do with tribunals and administration and picture, all the things that go into it, and also travel costs. So that participation fee, it's like a pool. It's meant to it'll meet the costs. So that's what that does. Why is it going to work? And with the A-League losing money, well, I keep saying this with the A-League. I don't mind if people have a smashing its crowds all the time. Take aside a couple of the teams that are doing poorly, no need to name them. I don't have an issue with clubs getting 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people to games with the occasional 10 or 15,000 that we see, because that's okay, right? That's great. I don't go out there saying what a terrible outcome that is. The problem is the cost that's associated with it. So why are they playing at Suncorp? Why are they playing at, even at Amy, where they're getting 5,000 or 6,000? So the costs that these clubs or, teams are paying in the A-League are ridiculously high for what their revenue is. So what we're saying is, all we've said from day one, is that we'll be viable because we'll do what we can do. That's all. And that's how I meet the argument as well. People say, why aren't you full-time professional? Because we can't be. We'll go broke if we start out full-time. We're going to be part-time professional, but not full-time. Why aren't we going out to do all the bells and whistles? And you guys are footballers, and you might come in on a Monday morning at training after your match, Stefan, and you got a sore ankle, and you might have someone say, "Oh, sorry, Stefan, how's your sore ankle?" We won't have that. Bad luck. You have to come in and put up with a little bit of resilience. Right? We don't have those facilities and opportunities yet because we're not there. We want to get there, and we'd love to have multi-million-dollar budgets. Who wouldn't? But we're going to be realistic. So we've got to do what we can do. Doesn't mean we're doing, we were disparaged by the PFA and a few others calling it, NPL on planes. But in the end of the day, even if you accept that, it's better than NPL not on planes. If you want to go there, if you want to actually get down to the, brass tacks. So we're trying to lift the game, and we're going to do it according to our means. So if we do it according to our means, and I mean our best means, not our sort of let's not do our best, the clubs will have to step up, right? And it'll be the best they can do. And the top 8, 10, 12 will lift it substantially. So that's how it'll work. It won't work by setting an arbitrary cost base and saying, meet that, right? It'll be what the clubs can do. That's how it's been designed.
Yeah. Well, that goes perfectly into the next question and the last question because everybody's busy. But at Lazy News Update 1, can you clarify the conditions on wages for the NST? Are there minimum wage requirements for players and staff? And I think that touches on what you just spoke about. Yeah. And I would love to add to that. So what you're saying is there's not going to be a salary cap. It's going to be a club cap imposed by don't go broke, don't be silly, or is the FA going to say you can't spend over a certain amount or a minimum amount? How will it work?
FA hasn't set a maximum amount, but they have said that they want players to be paid over a 12-month period, over a 52-week period. That was stipulated. That's part of the professionalising of the game and the protection of the players. And there will be, we'll have to meet minimum legal, requirements so that players will be getting paid for what they do. There's laws that apply. And again, what we've said as a matter of practice is most players, not all, be on the younger side. So, what they would earn would, there are laws in Australia that govern what people can earn for being employed, and they'll be employed. So there'll be superannuation and insurance and everything else and minimum rates that players will get paid. But as you know, Stefan and Ben, the one problem, if you want to look at it that way, the one issue that you have to worry about with these traditional clubs is paying what they put all their money into players. Now, I think one of the benefits, one of the risks is that too, but one of the benefits is we're not for profit, so there won't be money allocated for shareholders. The clubs basically spend what they earn because that's how they're made. So we want to make sure that they do remain viable by staying within some guidelines, because otherwise, you don't want clubs going crazy at the other end either. But they will have to comply with minimum Australian law and what it provides for. So anyone they employ off field, on field, will get paid according to law.
Yeah. So if let's say a Preston Lions is getting 4,000 or 5,000 every week, and the sponsors are through the roof because everybody's loving it. I think they've got a redevelopment either happening or just happened, and they want to pay their players full time and have the physio in there checking their ankle on a Monday morning. They'll be allowed to do that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that's good because it's ambitious. It shows, and hopefully the more ambitious teams that start to do that, it's like anywhere in world football, isn't it? The more money you spend, normally you'll get the rewards. But how do you get the money? Through a better organisation, winning games. So yeah.
And Stefan, I'm happy to end this by saying also that you mentioned the traditional clubs and the traditional migrant supporters at the start, and I think I was on a Lucy Zelich interview 2 or 3 years ago, and she asked me about this, and I said to her that no one told these communities, these people that came from overseas, what they can't do, right? And when they came to Australia and just worked here and contributed to this country, no one put a lid on it, right? That's why we've got some wonderfully successful people that have come from overseas, from everywhere, no matter what part of the planet they came here from. And the biggest difference with what we've done to our teams is we've put a cap on them. Why would you do that? So let them, as you said, let them be ambitious. Don't worry about them looking after themselves. They've been around for 60, 70, 80 years, some of these clubs. They've survived some very, very tough times, restrictions, coming out of an NSL, they died, some of them, the NPL restrictions on what they can and can't do. And here they still are, putting their hand up. I think we need to commend them for that. Everyone forgets that we wouldn't be having this conversation, we wouldn't be having this possibility if it wasn't for these clubs. Who put their hand up in the end? Traditional clubs. Why? Because they're bloody strong, right? Why? Because they've got backing. So let them. Why are we stopping them? That's I can't emphasize that strongly enough. It's not for me to say, it's not for you or Ben or any one of us, because we're not running them. I can tell you now that these clubs that have run themselves for years and years and years, they've made mistakes. I mean, they could have been better in time, and they have to learn from their mistakes as well. I'm not here to say they're perfect, of course not. And they got into some trouble at various times, but here they are, right? Here they are. And without them, we wouldn't be having a second division.
Good. Big time to wrap it up, I think, on that.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. No, it was a great chat and great to get the insight, I suppose, from the horse's mouth. We've spoken about the NST, but more so in speculation than anything else. So it's been great to have this chat and learn a little bit more. I've learned something myself, so I'm sure everyone at home is grateful to listen to what you have to say. So we appreciate you taking the time to come on here. Wish you all the best with everything, and obviously very, massive congratulations for everything that you've done so far to help these teams to sort of get back to where they hopefully belong.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. It's been a labour of love for me, and I'm looking forward to 2025 and a kickoff. And Merry Christmas to your listeners and viewers, and to you guys, and thanks very much.
Football Friends with Ben and Stef is proudly brought to you by the Inner Game Journals, started by none other than our co-host Stefan Moore. The Athlete Performance Journals were created to help athletes of all abilities become more self-aware through goal setting and reflection. On or off the field, the mental side of the game is so crucial to help you feel and perform at your best. Head over to www.theinnergamejournals.com and use code FOOTBALLFRIENDS to get 15% off all products. If you're a club, school or academy, you're in luck. Stefan also runs workshops, and he's just released the app version, which will allow you to give direct feedback to players. Download the app for free today. Search The Inner Game on the App Store.
Guys, if you've been listening to our podcast the last couple of weeks, we have been mentioning that there could be a little giveaway that we're planning to do, and we just want to let you guys know that we are teaming up with the A-League to give away 2 weekend passes to January's inaugural Unite round. I think it's the 12th to the 14th of January. So if you haven't followed us yet, make sure you give us a follow, stay up to date, keep an eye out on our socials to see when it's all getting started, and we're hopefully going to be giving that away to 2 lucky listeners. So give us a follow and make sure you stay up to date.
pretty good giveaway, I think. I tell you what, I'm going to make sure that I'm following all of the socials and trying to win this giveaway. I'm not sure if I'll be in the country or where I'll be, but I want it. And if not, it'll be a great Christmas present for someone. So round 9 preview before we get to the Unite round. Round 9, last round before Christmas. First up, Brisbane against Central Coast. That would be a really exciting game. Talking about exciting, high-scoring games. I think that one could be in similar vein to the Melbourne City. There's going to be goals Brisbane want to score. So does Central Coast. So that would be a beauty. And then after that, we've got Adelaide against Newcastle Jets. I'll definitely be getting down to Cooper's Stadium to watch that one. Hopefully the weather's good. And Adelaide need to bounce back. It's a massive game for them at home. They should be winning that one, I think, if they want to get back into the top 4. Wellington v Western Sydney. Western Sydney obviously are pushing for that top spot, and Wellington come off a big win away. Now they're back at home, so we'll see how they go. And then we have Sydney FC against your boys, Western United. You'll be loving that. Probably staying at Coogee. Crown Plaza is the best away trip there is. In the morning, get down for a cheeky dip in the water, have a coffee, and I tell you what, when you do that, you're set up pretty well for a good rest of the day. So hopefully you come home with the 3 points, and then we've got the derby, the biggest game of the round, Christmas derby. I think they will. City need to win this. Like, it's one of those games where in years gone by it was like, you know what, victory. If they want to make a statement, they need to win this game. But to be honest, it's kind of changed this year. City, how much they've been struggling. This is the game. You step up and you win this, and then you kind of put victory in their place a little bit as saying, you know what, maybe you're top right now or close to it, but we're better than you still. So we'll see how that goes, and then ending up with Perth v Macarthur. 2 teams. Well, I guess Macarthur have been flying, but Perth need to win some games. And at home, you'd really be expecting 3 points. So let's see how the Bulls go. They got a little bit of a longer break in between games. So that's round 9. And that's it for the week, Ben. If you want to tell everyone where to hear us, or where to listen to us, where to find us.
Yeah, guys, that's it from us. But as I said, stay tuned to our socials more now than ever. So make sure you give us a follow and subscribe to us on the other platforms. We're at Football Friends Pod on Insta and TikTok. We're at Ben and Stef Pod on X, and we're Football Friends with Ben and Stef on YouTube as well. You can see Stef in his NEC Nijmegen kit that never got touched when he was over in Holland. But thank you very much, guys, for listening. We'll be back next week.
And just quickly, as Ben, he's forgotten something again. Keep letting us know what you want to hear. Keep letting us know. We do want to know, because we want to keep making this as good as possible. At the end of the day, we're not doing this for each other. I can't stand listening to Ben. So if you can let us know what you want to hear, then we can keep going in that way. So whether it's special guests, whether it's topics, keep letting us know. We'll keep thinking of ways to making this the best possible podcast. But that's it for this week, and have a great Christmas to everyone. Don't eat too much. Nothing worse than when you're waking up the next day feeling like crap. So enjoy, everyone.
See you guys.
Oh, friend.
Fuck you lot, where's the beer?